I sat at that dinner table with a lump in my throat so thick I could barely swallow my wine, watching my own brother, David, laugh with his co-workers about how I was the unsuccessful sibling who still lived in a world of scribbles and pipe dreams, while he was out there making real moves in the corporate world. He didn't know that the man sitting at the head of the table, his prestigious CEO boss, was about to lean over, slide a legal contract toward me, and beg for my signature on a deal worth more than David's entire career earnings. I had been the family's punching bag for 10 years, the starving artist sister who didn't get a real job, but in that single moment, the power shifted so hard I thought the room might spin off its axis. Have you ever been pushed so far by the people who are supposed to love you that when the opportunity for a perfect, devastating revenge falls into your lap, you take it without a second thought? Was I wrong for letting him humiliate himself in front of the man who controlled his paycheck? Or did he finally get exactly what he deserved after years of condescending cruelty? You tell me if I should have played nice, because by the time the dessert plates were cleared, David's life was in shambles, and I was finally walking away with the respect I had earned in blood, sweat, and ink. To understand how we got to that disastrous Christmas dinner, you have to understand the dynamic between me and David. David is 3 years older, and from the moment he graduated with his MBA, he decided that his mission in life was to remind me that my degree in fine arts and illustration was a glorified hobby. My parents, unfortunately, bought into his narrative. They aren't bad people, but they are traditional. They understand spreadsheets, they understand 401ks, and they understand titles like Senior Vice President of Logistics. They don't understand freelance licensing, intellectual property rights, or the fact that the scribbles I do on my tablet actually pay for my modest but comfortable apartment in the city. For years, every holiday followed the same script. David would show up in a suit that cost more than my car, talk loudly about his bonuses, and then turn to me with that smug, pitying smile to ask how my projects were going, usually followed by a suggestion that his firm was looking for a receptionist if I ever wanted stability. I usually just bit my tongue, nodded, and let it slide for the sake of family peace. But this year was different. This year, David had managed to get himself invited to the inner circle. His boss, Mr. Sterling, the CEO of a massive global tech conglomerate, had decided to host a private Christmas dinner at his estate for a select few rising stars and their families. David was over the moon. He told me, in no uncertain terms, that I needed to dress appropriately and try not to mention my work too much because he didn't want to explain to his boss that his sister was a struggling cartoonist. He literally told me to just say I worked in digital marketing. If anyone asked, I was exhausted, stressed from a massive contract negotiation I had been working on for months, and honestly, I was just about done with being his secret shame. When we arrived at Mr. Sterling's mansion, the atmosphere was thick with old money and expensive cologne. David was sweating through his shirt, acting like a sycophant, laughing way too hard at Mr. Sterling's jokes and dropping buzzwords every 5 seconds. My parents were in awe, hovering near the buffet and looking like they'd stumbled into a movie set. I stayed quiet, wearing a simple but elegant black dress, sipping a sparkling water and observing. I noticed Mr. Sterling looking at me a few times throughout the night, but I assumed he was just being a polite host. Then we sat down for the main course. The conversation turned to the company's new rebranding project. Mr. Sterling was talking about how they had been struggling to secure the rights to a specific visual identity that had gone viral. A set of iconic, minimalist character designs that they wanted to use as the face of their new AI interface. David, sensing an opening to look smart, piped up. He started rambling about how creative types are usually difficult to work with because they don't understand the business value of their own work. He then looked directly at me, gave a condescending chuckle, and said to the table, I deal with this at home all the time. My sister here is an artist, and bless her heart, she thinks a few drawings are worth a fortune. They live in a total fantasy world, Mr. Sterling. You probably just need to find some kid fresh out of school to copy the style and save yourself the headache of dealing with an auteur who wants a percentage of the gross. The table went silent. My mother kicked me under the table, signaling me to stay quiet. David wasn't done. He laughed and added, look at her. She's probably thinking about her next finger painting right now while we're talking about a $1 billion rollout. It's cute, really. I felt the heat rising in my neck. I looked at Mr. Sterling, expecting him to join in the laughter, but he was staring at me with an expression of pure, unadulterated shock. He looked at David, then back at me, then down at a folder his assistant had just brought to the table. He cleared his throat, and the room went deathly quiet. This is the moment where everything changed. He didn't laugh. He didn't agree with David. Instead, he opened the folder and pulled out a sheet of paper, a printout of a digital portfolio. My portfolio, specifically the character designs for Project Eon, the very designs he had just mentioned. He looked at David and said, "David, do you have any idea who your sister actually is in the professional world?" David blinked, his smug smile faltering. She's Maya. She does freelance stuff. Why?" Mr. Sterling ignored him and turned to me. "Maya, I've been trying to get a meeting with your agency for 3 months. I had no idea you were related to one of my junior analysts. If I had known, I would have sent a car for you personally." He then slid a heavy, leather-bound contract across the table, right past David's plate. "We've met your agency's price. We're prepared to offer the 5% royalty on all merchandise, plus the upfront licensing fee. We just need your signature to move forward with the Super Bowl reveal." The silence in that room was so heavy you could have cut it with a steak knife. My mother's fork hit her plate with a loud clatter. My father looked like he had forgotten how to breathe, and David turned a shade of gray I didn't know the human skin could achieve. He was staring at the contract, staring at the numbers, and then staring at me as if I had suddenly grown a second head. He realized in that moment that the sister he had spent a decade belittling was the very person his boss had been desperately trying to hire. He realized that the scribbles he mocked were worth more than his entire career trajectory. I looked at the pen, then I looked at David, who was now trembling. He knew that his behavior tonight, his public mockery of the very person his CEO was trying to court, was career suicide. So here's where I was. I had the power to sign that paper, or I could walk away and let Mr. Sterling know exactly what kind of man David was when the rising star mask came off. Before I tell you what I did and the absolute chaos that erupted at that dinner table, I want you to pause. Think about every time someone has looked down on you, every time a family member made you feel small for following your passion. What would you do? Would you sign the deal and be the bigger person? Or would you use your new leverage to make sure they never forgot the day they tried to humiliate you? Drop a comment right now and tell me. Would you save your brother's career, or would you let him burn? I looked at Mr. Sterling and gave him a very calm, very deliberate smile. I didn't look at David yet. I picked up the pen, feeling the weight of it, and I said, "Mr. Sterling, I'm curious. David just told this entire table that my work is cute finger painting and that you should probably just hire a student to copy my style to save money. He seems to think my intellectual property isn't worth the paper it's printed on. As your employee, surely he has a better grasp of your company's needs than I do, right?" The blood drained from David's face so fast I thought he might faint. He started stuttering, I was just joking, sir. It was just brotherly ribbing. Maya knows I support her." I cut him off. "No, David, you don't. You've told me for 10 years that I'm a failure. You told me tonight to hide what I do so I wouldn't embarrass you. And now you're trying to backtrack because you realized I'm the one holding the keys to your big project." I turned back to Mr. Sterling. I'll sign this contract on one condition. I want it written into the agreement that my work is never to be handled, managed, or even viewed by David's department. I don't want his business expertise anywhere near my scribbles. And frankly, sir, if this is how he treats people he thinks are beneath him, I'd be very concerned about how he represents your company when you aren't in room. Mr. Sterling didn't hesitate. He looked at David with a look of pure disgust, the kind of look you give a bug you're about to squash. "David," he said, his voice like ice, "I think you should take your parents and leave. We'll discuss your future with the firm on Monday morning. Your behavior tonight was unprofessional, cruel, and quite frankly embarrassing to this organization. My parents were mortified. They tried to apologize, but Mr. Sterling just signaled for his assistant to show them out. David tried to grab my arm as he left, whispering, "Maya, please, you're ruining my life." I just leaned in and whispered back, "No, David, you ruined your own life. I just stopped pretending it was my job to fix it. I signed the contract right there at the table. The deal was life-changing. The royalty alone ensured I would never have to worry about a real job, ever again." As for David, the Monday morning meeting didn't go well. He wasn't fired immediately, but he was demoted and moved to a satellite office in a different state, stripped of his rising star status and put under the supervision of a manager who was known for being a hard-ass. My parents finally realized that the world had changed, and they've spent the last year trying to make it up to me, though the relationship is still strained. They see now that my pipe dreams were actually a powerhouse career, but the damage David did over a decade won't be healed by a few apologetic Christmas cards. The moral of the story is simple. Never mistake someone's silence for weakness, and never assume that the path you've chosen is the only one that leads to success. People will try to dim your light just because it shines in their eyes, but if you keep grinding, eventually they'll have to put on sunglasses. I walked out of that mansion that night feeling lighter than I had in years. I didn't just sign a contract, I signed my declaration of independence from a family dynamic that was toxic to its core. If you've ever had a told-you-so moment that felt this good, or if you think I went too hard on my brother, let's talk about it in the comments. Like this video if you think David got exactly what he deserved for his arrogance, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories of justice, revenge, and people finally getting there. Do share your thoughts on this whole mess. Did I go too far, or was this the perfect Christmas gift? I'll be reading your responses, and I'll see you all in the next story.